and welcome to another episode of Speculative Speculations. I'm Varsha.
I'm Carl.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Chris.
And this is a series where we talk about speculative stories in all their forms. Today is the last discussion for Klara and the Sun, which is by Kazuo Ishiguro. We've been working our way through this, as always, about 100-ish pages every week. The book we will be picking up when done will be Ream Deep by Neil Stevenson, which if I don't get lazy about posting the episodes, you might see next week or whenever I start posting them. But I do tend to post them regularly once I start for each book. So,
What are you saying? This is still not up on the YouTube channel?
yeah, it has indeed. But I finished Parable of the Talents, did I not? It's not. I have a backlog of 2 books to post, 2 or 3. This
That's
will be 3.
crazy.
Yes.
So I haven't, as of this recording, I haven't gotten even to make my debut on Speculative Speculation.
Well, you were for one of the you were there for one of the Parable of the Sower episodes.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
that's
that's
right.
right.
I cameoed. I forgot
Yes.
about that.
Well, we started reading Planet Atlas in 2024, right? Isn't that right?
That's
Yes, that's
it's
crazy.
fine. It's fine. This is fine.
Anyway,
The short story for today is Day Million by Frederick Pohl, and the short story for next week is something about a study room. Wait, let me pull up
yes, that's not
Chris's
too bad.
reading list. Reading or schedule. Yes. Oh, and Dream Day, we're going to be reading the first 120 pages. There are no chapters in this book, and the section markers are too large to make a reasonable breakdown. So, Chris has given us page numbers on the reading schedule. So, if you're following along with us, please consider checking out the Patreon forum. Otherwise, you will also hear where we are stopping each week. For next week, it's going to be up to page 119, which ends in the sentence. Like there's 2, the page is split into 2 parts. We're stopping at the sentence. You are a beautiful
Insanity.
girl, smart. I guess you know of computers. Convince me of this. That sounds like me. Ivanov pleaded.
I mean, qubits is a wonderful thing.
You guys, Chris, were you just
Be
making this up?
careful. It's been the downfall of many a hero.
Yes. Oh, the short story. That's what I opened this for. Student Body by F.L. Wallace. Go ahead, Chris. What were you
Yeah,
saying?
what I will say, I was going off my version, and we did a brief check with the Kindle version last week for the page
Yes.
numbers. But if anybody has another version and they can tell me what page it is, I will update the description in there so that we can kind of follow along and say what page numbers each of them are.
Yeah,
I
sounds
don't
good.
think I'll know till I get there because I can't find it.
If
We're
you
halfway through day 1.
Yeah, if you have the same hardcover edition, it's 119, page 119. So at least there's that. Cool. The Kindle edition and the US hardcover match
There it is.
with
Okay.
your
All
page
right.
numbers. Oh, and the distracted man is here. I wonder who that
Oh,
is.
we just had a jump scare.
Probably Dan.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Dan. Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, a new plane has entered the building. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sad you just missed out. We were just roasting you and, just tearing you a new one in front of millions of people, our
Yes.
millions of fans.
Wait, I thought we were
Andy's
doing
gone.
that before we started recording. Millions
Right,
of
we're not supposed to
fans.
let him know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dang.
Spotify sent me a notification saying, oh, if you have more than 50,000 downloads, we will make your download numbers public. I'm like, yeah, cool. About the heat death of the universe.
Yeah.
Our listening numbers will be public.
I love when like spam mocks me. Do you know when those podcast promotion clips and it says your podcast is ranking 294 in Fiji? We could do some work for you. It's like, what the hell?
Yes. And there are only 294 podcasts that are popular in Fiji.
Damn.
Anyway, lots of meta conversation about the podcast today. Dan, can you say something so we can see if we can hear you? Nope. Okay. All right. We'll figure.
Well,
We'll figure
Landy's
this
gone
out.
again.
Best
So
This,
episode
the
ever.
most professional podcast of all time.
we we do the no parasocial relationship thing on multiple platforms. So that's
That's
how we
right.
roll.
It's really just the mantra of the Page Chewing Forum is we want to ruin not just parasocial relationships, but all relationships for you. We want to encourage you to move to a jungle planet like Yoda and live there alone, surrounded by snakes for the rest of your life until you
Typically,
fade from this universe.
Meth snakes. Goddamn.
met snakes. Ooh.
Oh,
That- because snakes are better than whatever sort of humor this is. Anyway. Cool. So all the predictions immediately came true.
It did actually. This is unheard of in the history of this podcast and any of our discussions. We were
Yeah.
all bang on the money.
Right. Father shows up, check. The portrait is actually an artificial friend, check. Klara will be the actual artificial friend, asked to be inhibiting the new Josie, check. None of it came to fruition in the book, but they were all intended to happen if things went south, which thankfully they
Al-
did not.
Also, Klara gets put away.
That's
It's
true.
literally like
Yes.
thrown away to a dumpster. It wasn't
Junkyard.
exactly what I thought, where I thought she would be in darkness, because they kept setting up, like from the first pages, that they need to be in the sun, but she's just like senile in a junkyard alone. And saying those words, excuse me while I go cry a little.
Yeah. It was yeah, I don't know about you, but when we got to the point where the predictions came true, I turned me, like I have to say, it turned my stomach to a certain point. It was like, I cannot
Yeah.
believe this book's going there. That is dark as shit. Stuff.
Yeah. I genuinely not only couldn't believe that it went there, but then knowing apparently that some people say this nothing happens in this book, and I'm like, what book are you reading? Like,
Yeah.
do you is it literally like you need people to be like shooting each other? What is going on?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much that happens in this book. It's crazy.
A lot of drama.
Lot of drama.
Yeah.
A lot of drama.
Yay,
You're
and we
talking
There
can
he
go
is.
down.
like the plan to replace the girl, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought the mother was doing it by herself, like just some crazy notion she has, but the father was in on it. And the reason he's angry with the mother is he's worried that she'll keep the new artificial friend with her and not share. And yeah, I thought there'll be this big reveal where the father finds out that this is what she's planning, but like he's completely in on it. But you know, this does raise that question, which again, we've seen it done so many times at this point about what. But I think every iteration of it with every author, it brings up a slightly different version of it, or like there's still room for discussion about the nature of consciousness and whether there is something that in humans that can't be replicated if you make an artificial intelligence, or if you do, what do you need to make it exactly like humans. And Klara seems to think that she couldn't have replicated the human heart. That felt a bit, yeah, that felt like a nice little bow on the book. But what do you guys think about that particular aspect? And you know, it's not like it's breaking it up into the mind body dualism and there's something in the human mind that can't be replicated or whatnot. It's just like there's something that humans do. I think what Klara says, it's not about how humans themselves behave, it's how everyone else sees them.
I love
So-
that
Right,
line.
exactly.
Which
I-
suggests, sorry, go ahead, Carl.
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's a little more nuanced than just that she can't replicate human behavior. It's that the thing she can't replicate is the specific relationship, the love, how these people connect with one another. You know, their relationship. I mean, because that's when I hear about people like cloning their pets. You know, it's often an unhappy process ultimately, because you think like it's just not going to be the same pet. Even if the genetics are all the same, like nurture still impacts things. And you know, the environment around it is just going to be different, and there's you just can't recreate somebody who's gone.
You'd think you might
It's
be able to build a better pet.
right. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, right.
Make it
Jared's got
stronger,
some
more
ideas.
powerful.
Yeah.
Make them more powerful.
But that's what all pets are missing: a bit more strength and a bit more power. That's what we're all looking for. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
got
Build a
a really
machine.
Just one that doesn't pee on the rug. That's all.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, but the whole point is then when you have that pet that doesn't pee on the road, you're going, "Oh Jesus, this is nothing like our old pet. This is literally
Yeah, right.
like this is so unrealistic. Like this cloning process is just making machines and robots and yeah, exactly."
But I felt that like the replacing of the girl in this book was not about continuing her life, but it's sort of like it's a way for the parents to it's for the parents, right? It's sort of like, you know, the tomb is not for the person dead, it's for the people grieving, sort of thing. I don't know if that would help them grieve or it would make things worse, but right, so it's a bit different question. So she probably could replicate it so they wouldn't still be very similar, I feel.
In
But
my mind,
yeah.
it's I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I view it as kind of in parallel to Klara's quest to destroy the Kudin's machine to get the sun to save Josie, and that like it's this sort of like self-defeating, like inherently tragic attempt to shape the world around you, right? And to make your circumstances be what you know want them to be, to act, to
Yeah.
play God, essentially, right?
It's really much ado about nothing because it's magical thinking in a
That's the
non-magical
great way to
word,
summarize it.
you
Yeah.
know? And that's what it's really interesting that you have this big contrast of a highly technological piece of equipment in Klara with this having these thoughts of a highly magical nature, and that contrast is basically the whole crux of the book. And the what the mother and the father are looking for in what they lost with their first daughter, and in what they are thinking they are going to lose in the second daughter, is not facing reality, really. It's trying to continue something that's not focusing on what's happening in front of them.
Yeah.
And that's in the same thing. I think Ishiguro is kind of putting that to us in Klara's thinking about the sun is going to fix Josie. The sun is, going to do these things, and it really is a beautifully done contrast and a beautifully done theme that wraps around all those situations and really makes you think about them on many different levels. And it's just and there's no answer. There's no answers to these questions, and it's just out there for us to think about. And interesting, very interesting book.
Yeah, the crux of it, I think, for the parents and even for Klara, is they're trying to take control of a situation which they really can't control, both from the uplift of the children to all of the things that the parents try and do. And to be honest, I just think the parents all come across as complete and utter. They're all horrible people, every single one. Even Miss Helen becomes that at the end, and even Klara, from their own point of view, she's trying to take control of Josie's sickness by this thing with the sun. But really, what the book's about is about faith. It's about faith that they made the right choice for the betterment of their daughter, whether she lives or dies. And in Clara's case, faith that the sun is able to heal that. And this, I'm sort of angry for a bit when the sun did look to heal, but again, that's literally what faith is about. People will see what they want to see. The doctor was coming in and out of the house a couple of times a day and all that kind of stuff. So they were putting faith in medicine. Clara was doing it in the sun, and it's just becomes this thing that she got better. regardless of how it happened, she got better. And Klara will claim some part of it. The parents will take some part of it, but ultimately life happened and it came out this way, and people will take their own meanings and learnings from it in some way. And I thought that part was really quite beautiful, because for all of the genetic improvements and everything that was going on, it just came down to life playing out in some ways for basically everybody in the story.
I feel that I want to circle back to some of what we were saying early on, or the things you were bringing up, Varsha, which is about the nature of consciousness. And I don't even feel like the debate is really, is Klara conscious or not? Because Klara is conscious. Like, she's consciously thinking thoughts. She's consciously doing things. She is conscious. She has an internal monologue. It's much more like, is she at the same level of sapient intelligence, hyperintelligence, as human beings? And we're invited to even question what that's like among humans, right? With the genetic editing, right? It's like, okay, if you're theoretically making kids smarter by editing their DNA, are they now like a different species? Are they inherently better than Rick is because he didn't get uplifted? And likewise, like, are these human beings, because they are born, or whatever, however you want to differentiate, like, is their intelligence more worthwhile, more meaningful than the intelligence of Klara, who is machinery, but is capable of great depth of thought and emotion and reason, and and is, I mean, in any definition of the word conscious, is conscious. I think the real debate is like, does she have a soul? And that's where it gets just metaphysical.
Yeah.
Or the debate could be, is it possible to create something like Klara, or is it just fundamentally impossible because of something like the soul? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the conceit of the book, is that that Klara is conscious, because that's the whole point of giving her the viewpoint, her the first person,
Exactly.
and so that's why it's presented to us in that way. The questions that he's asking, especially in these last couple of sections, is that what portion of the human intelligence, the human consciousness, uh, may be lacking in Klara, because you can break it down. You can break down that consciousness and that intelligence into various multiple factors and multiple categories. Does she have a lower level of, say, just emotional intelligence, instead of just, consciousness doesn't have to be just one thing. And so that's part of the question too, is that, like, people get sentimental. They say they have generations of feelings and generational type of awareness, whereas she wouldn't have that. And so how does that work? How does that work with an artificial intelligence like that? And I think he skirts around those questions here and there in the narrative, and it really leaves it up to us to decide, where we want to land on those various issues.
Something touching on this that I found particularly impactful about the ending, beyond the fact that it's just depressing as hell that Klara was thrown away to live out in a junkyard, which, by the way, it took me a while. I like misread it my first time through, and was like, oh, she's spending a lot of time in the front yard of the mother's house. That's lovely. And then I like got to the end. I was like, wait, no, this can't be right. And so I went back and reread the description of the yard, and I was like, oh my god, she literally got thrown away. She got stuck into a junkyard. Anyway, you may remember, like, relatively early on, she thinks, like, why would anyone ever choose to be lonely? I think there's actually a recurring theme, loneliness, right? And how it relates to love. And that's what she did. I mean, that's really the curse of her existence, is like, she is choosing to support and love and protect and care for someone who will move beyond her. And I mean, you see that with humans too, but we don't throw away humans. Well, I guess you could debate that,
Eh,
but
eh.
I do think that there's, she's treated like, I mean, in your word, Jared, equipment, right? Like the crane in the distance that the manager looks past, which I did love ending it with the manager. What a great, just
Yeah,
like
beautiful.
way to bring everything full circle. And that the freaking manager is like, who we meet as this authority figure is, and well employed and everything, is now homeless and going around junkyards and picking up scraps. Like,
Yeah,
oh, this is a bleak society. This is, and it is depressing how realistic it feels. Like that feels like it could be the future, in a way that is really upsetting. But anyway.
Yeah, I think that's really, Carl, like, to me, that was the main focus of the book, is like parenthood. Because it's basically like Klara's a parent, the parents are parents, the shopkeeper is also in some way a parent. And that's because it ties it all together at the end. And she's like, well, I'm happy you had a good life, right? So they're all sort of ways, I guess, of parents and dealing with the fact that their children will one day not need them anymore, and their job is like to prepare them, basically make hard decisions regardless of the positive and negative outcomes, and take the responsibility, and then be like, I'm happy maybe if you don't need me anymore. I know it's very bleak, but um it is a bit like that. And Klara too was like, at some point she was discarded because her job was done. She raised Klara and she raised Josie, and Klara was happy. Like she was like, she accepted her role, and it wasn't tragic for her. For her, it was like, it was my job. I did what I need to do, and now I'm happy. And she understood how the other parents felt.
really interesting. Yeah, because it's funny to hear you talk about that, because I think Ishiguro plants his colours firmly to the mast here in giving us the perspective of Klara as being intelligent and thinking and all those kind of things. But ultimately, when you're talking about love and the lengths that the parents would go to for Josie to replace her and keep her alive or keep her memory alive versus what they would do versus Klara was very clear. And that idea that the bit that Klara couldn't replace was the love that Josie would have from other people if she was to impersonate her body is exactly what was missing from her life at the end, because at the end of the day there wasn't the care and the love for her at the end.
Right.
And I'm brought back to the point where the father, like, they're all having conversations with Klara. She's very much a confidant for the whole family. She's treated just like a child or a family friend or something like that. And actually, it reminded me of the point that they discarded the maid as well. That was another one that kind of, it wasn't just the AF that they discarded, it was the maid. But the fact, if that was a child asking to give up half their blood to destroy a machine, you would never do it, let a child do it, but quite willingly let the artificial friend do it for what seemed like it. They didn't know what it was for. Otherwise, it was literally, because you're disposable, it doesn't really matter whether you cause damage to yourself or not. And I thought that, again, a lot of that's very, very tragic and very, very sad, because this world seems to operate on those kind of relationships between technology and human, much more than human interactions. And it kind of does paint a very bleak future for humanity, because you can see the direction of travel of that happening.
Yeah, I mean, she's basically a slave, right?
Yeah.
How she's treated, and how we treated people in the past. It's very, very similar, right? You keep her. It's nice. You keep in the house. You're nice to her sometimes, but in the end, she's not one of them, I guess.
Right.
And how many parents are discarded in society? Thrown into a nursing home, thrown into wherever,
It
Thought
definitely
you were
happens. Yeah.
I thought you were just getting wistful because your parents are getting to that age where they're going to move out and then you're going to be discarded, Jared, or something. I thought that's
Yeah. I'm just
the
waiting.
relevance. Yeah.
I'm waiting to be discarded someday.
it it does reflect, like, going back to the scene where the father takes so casually the thing that, affects her cognitive abilities, which which was strange to me on so many levels. Like
It
what you
was.
said, she's a piece of equipment, she's just a toy. Like, even how Josie says so casually, if you're still here when I'm back, then we'll see you, but you might not even be here, knowing full well where she's going instead of here. Yeah, that 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 was really heart-wrenching, because, like you said, Jared, she is presented to us as a conscious being, and it's you. I mean, she's not even sort of earned as much a place in the home, it seems, as a pet might. It doesn't seem like
Yeah.
affection or love for her is something that any of them has considered. And the other thing that struck me, though, was it's not necessarily whether Klara is sapient enough to be human. It's whether you can ask someone to wear the skin of someone else. Like, she is her own person. She might be less intelligent than the humans around her, but she is her own person. So she won't replace Josie just because she's not Josie, right? Like, I think that does go back to the larger point the book seems to be making, which is that everybody's different, and there is, I guess, what makes humans humans is like their individuality in a great sense, because of, like, the heart in humans and how everyone around them loves them, right? You love them for who they are, not because they're a blob in space, which which I think is also something to think about in Clara's case, because it's not merely a question of, is she intelligent enough to mimic a human? It's she she probably fundamentally can't, because she's not the same person as Josie. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I know. I think you're making a great point, and what you mentioned about how she's not even treated with the dignity of like a pet, I think is part of what really hit me hard. I actually, it I don't think it's unrealistic, but it does border on that for me. In that, for as much empathy as a lot of these characters show, that none of them, like not even Rick, who I would argue is the most empathetic character of all of them, is like, no, Clara, you're gonna live with me now. Like, I'm not just gonna throw you away, right? Like, the way we attach to dogs or cats or whatever, but like, seeing what she does, like, if I had a Clara in my life, I would have her in my household until she fades. Like, I would never in my wildest dreams throw someone that intelligent. I mean, there's like, she's more intelligent
Yeah.
than our pets. Like,
She doesn't even need anything. All she'll do is stand in the
yeah,
sun.
you don't have to do anything for her.
Right.
Exactly. She's just there. She's just sweet. She does things for
This,
you.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
thrown away because she's occupying space. Like, what?
and she doesn't pee on the carpet. That's great.
That's true.
Exactly. She doesn't even pee on the carpet.
I'm gonna be a bit devil's advocate, but like, if you put like ChatGPT in your Roomba, would you treat it the same way as you would treat, like you said, you would treat Clara?
It
And
depends on how
ChatGPT,
intelligent
yeah,
it is.
like it's as far as we're concerned, he's smarter than a kid.
That's a great question.
But
Yeah.
it's not conscious.
Well, but
It doesn't
from their point of
have
view,
feelings.
yeah, but how do their parents know? How do people know in the universe that Clara has feelings? How do you know that?
Well, they're talking about the advancements of these things, and that, they're blown away by what they're capable of. I think their behavior is such that, like, I would struggle to read anything else into it. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's like, how do we know where that line is? I think is kind of the crux of the question, right? And I think that's fair, but I don't know. Like, if you're investing this much time into these artificial friends, like, at a certain point,
It's
you're
that
gonna
word.
figure that out.
It's that word,
Well,
friend.
yeah.
You don't
Well, I'm
expect a
kind of wondering is
Roomba
like,
to be
how
a
do
friend.
you
So.
Sorry, go ahead, Jared. Sorry.
No, you don't expect a Roomba to be a friend when you're putting your GPT in it.
Right.
It's the fact that they're built to be friends. That word kind of signals something.
Okay, but you can take a toy and put in again in AI and be like, how do you distinguish between really good mimicry and the real thing?
True.
That's the point I was trying to.
Yeah. Well,
I
Vasha
don't.
brings up a very good point in that when the father has no qualms about taking out half of her oil or lifeblood or whatever it is and sticking it into some random machine, wasting it basically. It shuts the machine down, but yay, we succeeded. But it's like what you said, somebody said before, you wouldn't give half of your kid's blood to this machine to shut it down. So the father doesn't think twice about it. He just goes along with it. Which is a little strange unless you look at it from his point of view, where she's just a piece of equipment, not a big deal. And because we're so immersed in Klara's point of view, I think it's hard for the reader to look at it from the father's point of view and stuff like that. I think it's difficult to do that. And that's on purpose. I think Ishiguro did that very on purpose.
Absolutely. And I think, I agree with all of what you're saying. And like, Dan, I appreciate you playing devil's advocate because you have a point, which is that how do you know, right? But I just believe that if we're capable, we personally, human beings, are capable of creating something as intelligent as artificial friends, then we have an understanding of intelligence and neurochemistry and, generalized intelligence, that we would be able to tell that this thing is, if not to the like understanding the extent of its consciousness, we'd at least understand the extent to which it is. I don't know what word to use other than alive. Like it is capable. I mean, we see this in animals, like, and they're definitely less intelligent than Klara is. Like, I don't know why we wouldn't. Like, we're coded to do that too. Like we like feel empathy. Like that's why we feel empathy.
Yeah, I mean, we kill animals for food.
Right. Well, I'm not
mean-
saying we wouldn't treat the robots like trash. We would, of
Okay,
course.
yeah.
That's not my argument at all. I'm just saying that, like, I
Yeah.
feel like some people would notice, and in fact, we know there are, because there are people who come up to Klara and are like, join our like revolution, trying to liberate artificial friends. Like it's not like Kazuo Ishiguro pretends like that isn't like on the table.
Yeah.
And even again, Rick does like kind of offer to like protect her, but he just sort of leaves,
Well, he
he
got
like just
sent off
grows
to
up and
college,
moves.
so maybe
Yeah.
he didn't have a choice. But
I
And
do
then,
think, Bo, that
ugh.
in like 10 years, probably, like many people are not going to be able to distinguish a real person from just chatting or even maybe listening from, these AIs. And then it's going to be the same thing. Like you're going to actually have this exact situation in real life, right? Like, at that point, do we treat them, do we give them rights? I don't know. I don't know.
What type of intelligence is it though? Because like a lot of our generative AI isn't actually like, it's essentially a big like information conglomerate. Like conglomerate's not the right word, but it's like recognizing patterns.
yeah,
It's
It's a
not
large
different types
language
of
model. Yeah.
intelligence.
if
Right. It's a
the
large language model.
yeah, but
But I
if
mean,
the
that's also how we kind of learn. Like humans learn
That's
by
part of our
recognizing patterns.
intelligence.
Yeah,
That's not the depth of our intelligence though.
I guess it's just very hard to prove anything because you start getting so into the realms of what we don't know that it's like, I don't know. Like if you make a computer complex enough, if you give it enough neurons, is it going to spontaneously start? There's some sci-fi books in which are like, once you reach a certain number of connections, it just basically the complexity is high enough that it can become sentient, right? Is that? True? I don't know. I don't know.
Certainly the question is, where does it start feeling emotions and having consciousness, which those I don't think are the same thing, because you can definitely feel emotions without being conscious, and you could have like an internal dialogue without feeling things, or certainly not feeling very much. And it's at that point that I think, that becomes a very serious conversation. I just feel like if we create something at I mean, it's tough to talk about because, like, I don't think anyone here is like a leading edge AI scientist. So, like, I don't pretend to
Surprise.
have the answers. Yeah, but I just feel like we would have some sense of where this thing is at, and part of it. I mean, I don't know. Please, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say. Well, here's what I think again is another big question within the book, because I think it's sort of Ishiguro sort of makes the point that Rick isn't that far away from Klara by being discarded by society, but by not being uplifted in society. And even though he's super bright and had done and created an awful lot with his natural intelligence, society wasn't really prepared to give him a chance. He was being discarded in a lot of the same ways that the Klara was. And okay, it sort of works out for Rick in the end, but it seems to me, it suggests that he's very much the exception rather than the rule. And so you're creating this 2-3 tier society of differences in humanity, never mind between AI and humans, which I think is, again, this kind of prophetic warning for society in some ways.
Yeah. I mean, even the shopkeeper, in a sense, was discarded by society. She's not useful anymore. Just like the father.
Exactly.
Well, he's not at work anymore. Well, he got discarded by society, and now he's also like separate, right?
I've definitely from maybe I'm too sci-fi brained, but I'm fully, like, at this point against ideas of genetic modification with human beings, strictly for the way that it would become a class conflict, and the wealthy would be able to. I mean, it's like, if you guys have any of you guys, like, this is like a kind of cartoonish extent, but have any of you read the Red Rising books? Okay, it's basically the whole world building is based around the idea that, like, every color of person, and it's like the colors of the rainbow. It's not like race as we think of it. Are all genetically engineered to do certain things, and they have those roles, and that's what they fit into. And golds are like the top. And, like, well, that's a cartoonish version of it. Like, that's what I could kind of see happening.
Definitely.
It would probably be a little more nuanced than that, but it would be a major issue where, like, the wealthy are able to just, like, super engineer their kids, the ultra wealthy, and things just get worse and worse and worse. And there's this huge disparity.
Yeah, you can definitely see society whereby prospects would be bettered by parents basically saying, well, if we genetically engineer you to be, say, an engineer, you will have a role working for this corporation. Like, it's very much the capitalist nightmare that is often portrayed in sci-fi in a lot of ways, that companies rule the world and governments don't exist and all that. But again, you can definitely see away from where we're standing here today to there, and it's not a massive jump in a lot of ways, and all these things are very much on the cusp, and our reliance on technology and our excitement about technology can sometimes get in the way of good decision making for society.
Yeah,
but not sometimes, really all the time.
Yeah.
Thinking about, is it really that much different than? I mean, it is different, but it's the same idea of, like, we're doing genetic engineering in a crude way all the time by sending children to different schools. You send someone to an elite school, or someone is rich, or someone, you're part of a legacy. You're like, your parents and your relatives are all in this politically influential family, right? And then you're bred to be that. It's like, it's just a more precise way of doing this bad thing we're already doing, sort of, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
That's been going on since nobility was created, since all that.
Yeah, it's like our crops, right?
That's slow rolling genetic engineering, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, before we were growing our crops from, you have the wild carrot, and then you slowly genetically engineer it by crossbreeding until you get our modern carrot. And now we can directly immediately do it with like 1,000% efficiency, right? And cross it with, I don't know, mouse genes or something and give it. But yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's an accelerated risk, I guess, of doing the same thing.
My
And
The slippery slope.
heightened, yeah.
my question or challenge for that would be, I feel that, and this is it's not a straight line, but over the course of human history, we have increasingly, particularly the last 2,000 years, we have increasingly enabled more opportunities for people of differing backgrounds
That's true.
to find success. Meritocracy, I'm not going to be here being like the world is a perfect meritocracy, everything's, of course not even close. There's a lot of injustice that we can work on, a lot of equity, but it's better than it used to be. And I feel that this genetic engineering, like imagine, the most extreme version where like the ultra wealthy, these billionaires are able to genetically engineer their kids to be as talented athletes as Olympic athletes, and also just like faster, computational power, are just literally more intelligent than all of the poor kids around them. They don't get sick. They live for longer. It's like you're literally creating another species. And that it just becomes like, it's one thing when it's like, okay, you've socially engineered these people to be better in some respect, but
Yeah.
or to have better outcomes. It's another to literally genetically from birth engineer them to be superior.
Yeah. I mean, that goes beyond what's actually happening in the world. And you're right, because the world in general is actually way better off for humans than it has
Yeah.
ever been in history. When you look at literacy rates and you look at all the stuff,
But
medical and health and life.
isn't it the what was this, something somebody said, like it's only within the last 100 years that anybody had a hot shower, and now like literally everybody on the planet kind of has access to hot water in some way, shape, or form, or some way to get it in some way, large with society.
And so, and of course, it can always be better. But getting to the level of what Kyle is talking about, we always have these fears of the rich corporate making another class, especially within, the past 50, 100 years or whatever. That has been one of the bases of science fiction since it started. And it's that very fear that keeps everybody on edge, keeps everybody watchful for that very kind of thing, hopefully. And we'll see where it goes, but we'll keep your eye on it.
Yeah.
Complain, raise a fuss, keep educated, keep people educated, and I think hopefully things will keep getting better and not get worse.
I do suspect, because the wealthy and the ultra wealthy always get access to new technology first. Like that's just how things are, and I don't see that changing for as long as there are wealth disparities. But I will say, I think the more science fictional aspect is the like thinking. I'm kind of arguing against what I was arguing earlier, which is that like I think that we will be able to genetically engineer people, but it probably won't be to the extreme extent of like what I was talking about, in terms of like making like superhumans effectively, right? Like it's probably more likely like it'll be, they're, they will be able to genetically engineer their kids so they don't have certain disabilities,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
they're a little healthier, their immune systems are a bit stronger, and there'll still be injustice and inequity in that, but it won't be the like hard line, they're literally like another species of homo. I don't use that as a slur or anything, but like homo sapien, homo whatever they are, Homo superior, to take the X-Men term. Yeah.
Seems
Kudos
more
to this
realistic.
book, making us talk about this stuff. We're not even talking about the plot or the characters at this point,
Yeah.
but just the ideas.
Homo
It's
Deus.
proposing.
That's what Harari calls it.
There you go.
Switch tack a little bit and talk about one of my favourite scenes in the book, which was the scene in the diner between Rick and the ex-boyfriend.
Yes.
I
So
mean,
good.
there was something so poetic about this young boy being... He's so respectful and so good, and he just wants a chance, and he's just caught up in other people's shit to the point that it didn't matter what he said. He had the emotional intelligence that a 14 or 15-year-old boy to realize what was going on there. And after his mother had asked him to go there mentally and brave the thing, and it was just... She ruined it. It's one of the, like, all the parents are horrible people in this book. Like, every single one, they're selfish is the whole thing. They want their kids to do better for what it appears to them. It's not about... They want the portrait to exist for them to help with their grief. They're not necessarily worried about the death of Josie and stuff. Like, it's so horrible. But that poor boy that was sitting there thinking, and we're reading it going, he's a talented young man who's got good thoughts and has a future and has achieved far more than Josie has, even in his short life, without being uplifted. And yet he's got nothing. And it was so heartbreaking as it just spiraled into this, basically, you ghosted me conversation.
Yeah.
I do feel like his mom was there for him and not her. I don't think it's an appearance thing for her. I think she genuinely wants what's best for Rick, and it's just her. She's like, she let her ego get in the way. That I agree with. I don't know that I'd call all the adults horrible, but they're definitely much less pleasant than the children, particularly Rick and Klara. And I mean, my scene that stands out for that is the one where, as Josie is at her sickest, the mom just goes off on Rick for no reason and is like, "Are you satisfied that you won? Like, do you feel like you won?" I couldn't believe that. I was like, this is heinous. To say this to this child who loves your daughter, who feels horrible, who has literally all of society against him. How dare you? The mom is just, like, brilliantly written, very complex character, but she is just awful sometimes. Just does truly heinous things.
Classic Rick. I was just going to say the classic Rick. Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
Please go, Chris.
No, I'm muted.
I just wanted to say that I can imagine having a person like that in real life. Like, it's just very flawed characters. That's how I would describe him. Like, flawed and very human. That's how parents are, and very emotional. Right. Please continue your thought, Chris.
I can't even remember what it was. That's why I muted myself. Sorry, Dan. I think it was almost certainly a throwaway comment, so you saved the world.
Barsha, we haven't heard from you in a second. What are your thoughts about any of this or something else?
I think you all made some excellent points. I was really enjoying the conversation. And I was like agreeing with everyone. I know, like, we were all making different points, but there's always that nuance to every topic, that a little bit of everything is true. Yeah, I think I've talked about this before, whether we should give things rights if they start to look and talk like humans. I think the answer is absolutely yes. So it terrifies me when I see companies that want to replicate consciousness, because what are you going to do with them? Make slaves of them? Stop it. And yeah, there was something else, but also to our point, like, just to sort of restrict the discussion a little bit, the the question of, like, it was heart-wrenching that Klara got thrown away. That's the word for it. There's no need to tone that down. And you know, it makes sense that in this world that she's just a piece of equipment and we are seeing her through her eyes, and so we feel bad for her. And from any other family that would make sense, but this family who wanted her to replace their dead child discarded her, and that
Mhm.
sucks. They thought that she could be the equivalent of their daughter, and when she wasn't needed in that role, uh she she was thrown away, which is like, again again, like talking about how horrible all the parents are and how terrible they are. If you honestly believe that she could replace her daughter, how could you discard her like a piece of equipment, right? Like,
I think that's evidence that it was never going to work, right?
yeah,
With how
maybe.
easily they really, she was just a tool to them. They were never going to love her like that, and the illusion would not have worked.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. And and I guess taking the parents' side for half a moment, that wouldn't have worked for
Ooh,
yet another reason, because they they would have had her for what, 10 more years before she started fading
that's true.
away. And yeah, so yeah.
All right. Uh, Not much of a strong parent argument there, but
Yeah. Not really, no.
but the question I have is that I wonder, because Ishiguro gave us this construct of Klara where Klara had this ability to have this. I go back to the magical thinking again. And that is a human trait, that kind of thinking,
Exactly.
that kind of worshiping the sun. And it makes sense within her capacity because she needs the sun to recharge and all that stuff. Um, but I was wondering if they would have had a different view of her if she would have let them in on her plans with the
Uh,
sun and with, because she kept them secret, and she dared not speak about it because she had the superstition that the help would be taken back if she talked about it. That's a very, very human thing to do.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah.
wishing over the birthday candles, you know? And um I wonder if she showed those. First of all, how was that engineered into her? How did she learn that? Is there a level of consciousness that came to her because of that type of thinking? Is that what made her different from the other friends? And if she were to reveal that to other humans and take ownership of it, would other humans have looked upon her a little differently instead of just as the machine?
you raised a lot of really interesting points
Amazing.
there. I
Yeah.
mean, one that you touched on at the end that I think is really interesting to think about is, are the other AFs conscious, right? Or is this unique to Klara? Because we're told repeatedly she is different. And is there something about, like, did she spawn consciousness in a way that the others have not, or maybe most of the others have not, right? Maybe most of the others are just like robots, you
That
know,
we know of,
they don't
you
think
know? Yeah.
consciously, they just do whatever they do, what they're programmed to do, while she has an additional level of volition and intelligence. um and God, yeah, there is that added layer of tragedy now that you're talking about, right? That if she did communicate more of her inner world, it would have been harder to throw her away, right? Because they didn't realize all that was going on beneath the surface with her, which gets to those deeper themes of like communication. So much of the tragedy in this book is about a failure of communication between the characters in a very human way, you know, that they just are unable to express how they feel, what they want, what they, fear, and it creates all these problems, for the kids and the adults, and God, even Klara too. I hadn't fully thought about that, but that's, oh, If she had just talked to them.
Yeah. And on top of that, her inability to feel anger and hurt and to just accept her outcome and be happy with it almost makes it more sadder, because that wasn't what she was programmed to do or feel. And she sort of accepts every moment and place for what it is. And like, again, that lack of agency, or that other piece of humanity that was sort of taken away from her, the bit that she could be disappointed in how she was treated and that kind of stuff, that she wasn't able to feel that because her programmers thought that wasn't useful, or conducive. And it's, yeah, the whole end is so melancholic because she's happy, but we're not as the reader, because we can see how she's been discarded, and she's been left out.
Yeah, I can see how
I don't
people
even know
would
she's
not
happy. She's content. I feel like
Yeah,
she's okay.
Yeah.
You know.
accomplished. She did
Yeah.
what she set out to do.
Well,
She looks-
essentially, she's standing back in the window again. If you think about it, she's back in the window of the
Yes.
shop again, which was her original happy place. She's out in the sun all day, and she can just see the world pass her by and like around her. So, like, I do think content is a much better word for that, for sure. But there is a sort of coming full circle for her.
Absolutely. No, it's a classic hero's journey in that way,
Yeah.
right? And she, I mean, the reason why I feel I struggle to say that she's happy is because she spends all her time reminiscing in her memories, right? Living nostalgically, effectively, right? And that means there's some sadness there. When you're thinking back to the past, spending all your time doing that, there's sadness. But she is content, right? Like, she's not clearly miserable. And there's just something so sad and, yeah, melancholy. Melancholy, I think, is an even better word. It paints the picture, I think, more clearly.
Yeah, but that's
What a
a
beautiful
natural.
book.
That's a natural human thing. Trust me, when you get my age, you're gonna start feeling that a little bit.
Sitting out in the porch, Jared, just watching the world go by, thinking, where is everybody? This house used to be so busy. My life used to be so full. And that's peace and quiet, and I love it, but also, it wasn't always like this. And those wee bastards don't appreciate me anymore. It's exactly the same. Oh dear.
Oh man.
I can tell you, this has got me. I'm very excited to read the rest of Ishiguro's books
Definitely.
and just dive right in. Never Let Me Go. I'm excited to return to that. I'm going to do the audiobook and just listen to it all the way through. And oh, that was something I wanted to mention. Is we had talked about how it's like seems like tailor-made for a movie. Like, this should be a movie. Apparently, there is a movie coming out. It was directed by Taika Waititi, and it's coming out this year.
Oh, really?
No. Oh no, not Taika Waititi.
I don't know
No,
who that is.
I love Taika, but it does
So
not
do
seem
I, but-
tonally the right fit.
But not for this project, yeah.
Right.
I love his work, but I don't need a Taika Waititi spin in this story. I need,
Right.
yeah,
I'm
something else.
hoping
Who knows?
I'm hoping he has the ability and the self-restraint to realize this needs a different tone than a lot of his work. Like, I wouldn't mind like little bits of Taika Waititi humor here and there, but it would be a huge mistake to fundamentally alter the tone of this story. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it needs
And-
to speak for itself.
Yeah.
He
It's like
whoever does, yeah, well, if he's doing it, I hope he's not trying to explain it to us. I hope he's letting the work speak for itself.
Yeah, that would be a studio exec thing.
Yeah.
I could see a lot of suits reading, a script or watching scenes and being like, I
don't know
that
what
people
happened.
understand
I need
this.
to, yeah, explain it to me. You need to put
While they're
something
on their
in there.
phones,
Yeah.
Or accentuating her machineness. I think that's my fear with Taika Waititi, because he often has these very I
broad.
think that things like a fall right, where it overplays
Broad.
the stereotype in some ways. You know, if she's a machine, that he makes sure that she's a machine. When the whole purpose of the thing is that you're questioning that. I mean, that's literally the
Right.
whole point. So, well, let's see. I'll definitely go and see it. That's for sure.
I definitely think the way to play it is like treating, approaching her. Like the reference in my mind wouldn't be like classic robot speaking like this, doing
Yes.
awkward movements. It would be more like someone who is neurodivergent, right?
Yeah.
Like look at someone who's autistic and like having that like
I completely agree.
slight turn from typical behavior, and I think that would be closer to getting across how she acts. Right. All
Just
right.
another way of looking at the word literally. I think that would be the way. You would like to see that play out. But
and looking at it in boxes.
in boxes, yes, the way she can see.
Well, what's interesting is something I've picked up on towards the end is she doesn't always see things in boxes. It's like when she's like more emotional, she sees things in boxes. Like when she's getting like anxious,
Yeah.
things get into more and more boxes.
Well, some
Well,
of that started to break down towards the end.
yes.
Like some of her faculties were breaking down because
Yes.
whether because she lost some of her fluid or whatever, or because she was just getting older, losing some sun or whatever. But
What did you all make of the big metaphor or symbol at the end of in her last scene in the barn, Mr. McBaron's barn with the sun, and it turns out it's not the sun, it's like a fractured mirror reflecting
Yeah,
many different
reflection. Yeah.
versions of the sun. What was your all's take on that? I'm curious.
I thought that scene was going to go somewhere else. I thought the reflection of the mirror was going to point out something within the barn that would be drawing a ring out to it. I thought that's where the resolution of the sun healing Josie was going to be in that case. But the fact that, I mean, she never knew where the sun was. I first thought was it went into the barn, and then when she got into the barn, it seemed to be outside that, but she could talk to it from the barn, and then she realized, obviously, in the mirror and the reflections, it was sort of all around her and everywhere, and she couldn't make sense of it. But to me, it just spoke to her naivete about the world around her. She had no scientific brain, really. The Coudin's machine, the refraction of the mirror, the light, how light worked, and all of that kind of stuff. It never reached the point that her intelligence could ever make sense of that, or that she wanted to make sense of it. That was sort of my takeaway from that whole point, was that there were certain elements of this world, whether through lack of schooling or lack of program or whatever it was, that she couldn't make that connection with. But that's where her sort of almost like faith-led life came from. You know what I mean? She just kind of just, I'm going to believe that, and that if I do that, this is what happens, because I've seen it happen to the beggar man. I've seen it happen in other places. Very like classic, beginnings of man kind of thinking.
yeah, mirrors are often used as a reflection of character, especially in movies. And in this case, I would attribute it as a metaphor that she is merely a reflection of humanity and not actually humanity, just as that was a reflection of the sun and not actually the sun.
Nice.
What are your thoughts, Varsha? Any additional thoughts about it?
Not really. I thought that was a pretty cool scene, and like almost reason for her to add a reason for her to believe that the sun sort of lived there, because he's reflected in that mirror. But no, I didn't make too much of it. What did you think, Carl?
So I sat with this one for a long time. I really love symbols in books when an author takes a moment to really include something that clearly, but not obviously, relates to what they're trying to say. And so something that is open to interpretation. but obviously has import, is what I'm saying. And I felt, after thinking about it, that it was a stand-in for how, the sun is real. The sun is there. But all these mirrors reflected the sun's light, perceived the sun, in a sense, in a lot of different ways. And so in some of the reflections, the sun was scary. It was overbearing, overwhelming. Other mirrors made it seem softer, kinder, gentler. And so I feel that that's very much kind of a testament to our humanity. And you could say Klara's humanity, or however you want to define it. Humanity isn't the right word with her, but that we are all real. We are real individuals, and everyone around us perceives us in a different way. And yet that is real too. All of those mirrors are real. What they're reflecting is real. It has an impact on the world, but they're not ultimately the sun. The sun itself exists independently. And so I felt like it was that symbol for how we all relate to one another, and the truth of who we are, and how that our relationships, that we all have a different reflection of the sun.
Nice. That's quite brilliant. And I guess it does tie back to what she says in the end, to how she could never be Josie, because it's not about how Josie behaved, it's about how everyone else saw Josie.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a great metaphor, how you read that. Nice.
Only one big question left to remain for me, and unfortunately Picard probably can't answer this one. Is this the best book we've read for the podcast?
Interesting.
I'm glad to be around for a book that's even in the conversation. I love that.
It's definitely in the conversation. There's no doubt, because it's profound, entertaining, easy to read, but has depth, and
one of my favorite books I've ever read. I know this is one I'm going to return to.
It's fantastic.
I think, but is the best?
Is it the best?
Question.
Trying to think.
Okay, is it better than any of the Southern Reach books?
Yes.
I think so as well. I love the
think
Southern
so.
Reach.
Yeah. I mean, the Southern Reach is more
Its own
entertaining.
thing. Yeah,
but
it's its own thing. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, this is just so rich thematically. Like we haven't even talked about some of the side themes that are just sort of mentioned, right? Like the fact the father is maybe possibly a fascist and bears arms, and
Right.
His
and
political leanings were definitely a weird turn in this book.
yeah. And the housekeeper had to find protection. Like, she had to find a community that would accept her because she's an immigrant, right?
Yeah.
Like, this has just sort of spawned so many threads of where we could go. This is what you might call an important book. The Southern Reach is entertaining, and it certainly does have a lot of interesting themes.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tchaikovsky's work comes close in terms of the themes that are discussed, but then he does take 3 fairly long books to, I think, explore a similar amount. There is more depth to that exploration, not just because he has more room to do it with. What else did we read?
Yeah,
Similar, but
the Parable books.
yeah.
I'm just going to say that it's probably second to Parable of the Talents, even more so than Sawyer.
Yeah.
I just think Talents is just exquisite.
Damn, I really need to get to that.
Yes.
Parable of the Talents is just, it's one of the greatest books I've ever read. Like, it stays with me now, and I think about it a lot. Every time I turn on the news, I think about Parable of the Talents.
Yeah, it's going to rip your heart out of your chest.
Yeah.
It's going to get stomped on.
It is so much to say.
Yeah, take a break with something fun to read before you pick that up.
But to me, that's the interesting thing about Parable, is that it is heavy. There are some sections that you go, oh my god, that's a lot. But I think its ultimate message is not bleak, in how it goes about, because the main character isn't bleak, and I think that's really, no spoilers or anything, but she is just that person. She's that from the very first page.
Yeah, I agree. It does have nearly a hopeful ending, I think.
Yeah, it's rough though. It's a rough ride.
Yes, it is a rough ride to
Has
get
its
there.
moments. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah,
good
the first book was bleak. It was heavy. It was I think that's the number one reason I haven't read Talents yet, is just that it was hard to get through because I was just constantly upset reading it. And it didn't have like the charm of like, or the like, there's a sweetness to Klara and the Sun, right?
Yes,
that like
there
makes
is,
it a little
definitely.
easier to get through the darkness and like handle the depth of emotion you feel. While with Sower, I was just like overwhelmed with horror and grief and
Well, it gets
sadness.
rougher in Talents, I think, in parts. Like Talents,
Oh.
parts of Talents get darker. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but that book.
Yeah.
That book.
There is a hopeful message about it. But yeah,
I do appreciate that.
It gets dark. Yeah, this had a lighter tone, Klara and the Sun did.
Yeah, definitely.
But I thought it was lighter all around until I just talked about it with you guys. Now I'm kind of depressed a little bit.
Speculative speculation, spoiling books for Jared. Since when did we start? 2024. Oh man.
Did you really start in 2024?
Yeah,
Yeah.
January
You
thereabouts.
guys have gotten through a lot of books. Wow.
I know, right? It's fun.
Vash has been cracking the whip, so we.
Yeah.
Yeah, no joke. Oh yeah, yes, adjunct.
I am Klara. Oh god. Or Murderbot. I don't know which is the most appropriate.
I'm oh, have you guys seen the show? Okay, we'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, we have to get to Day Million.
Yes.
Day Million by our friend Mr. Frederick Pohl.
Yes. Who's got summary?
I'll go for the summary. Boy meets girl. Boy doesn't really meet girl. They fall in love and then they die. I mean, is that the story?
But do they really die?
Pretty much.
Isn't that the story? Isn't that pretty much it?
Wait. No. The first line. One of the first lines. None of that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the first line says, on this day, I want to tell you about which will be 1,000 years from now. There was a boy, a girl, and a love story. And then it goes on to tell you about that it's not really a boy, it's not really a girl. And
None of it's true. None of it's true.
And it's completely fascinating. Like, for 4 pages or whatever it goes for, I thought the first page especially is absolutely reaching for themes.
Yeah.
That today.
Yeah. It kind of hammers you with a little bit of shock value right off the bat.
It does.
And you're kind of like, whoa. But then as it goes on, you see what he's doing and you're like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here. And yeah, it has a lot of themes like relevant to today. And then he gets, as it goes on, he gets a little more snarky and he gets a little more it gets a little more amusing and a little more humor thrown in as it goes on. And I love the line of carried agricultural templates to the planets of Canopus, and I'm just like, is he talking about pot? and it's just and it gets amusing, and then everybody dies. And
What do you think, Portia?
It was an amusing story, yes, and I wasn't. There's something he said about what falling in love is like, basically just stopping yourself from raping another person. I was like, okay, and then he says
Jesus.
something after that, and then the line after. Sorry, go ahead.
So he uses a lot of pejoratives, I think, at the start, like at the start of the book, and I think that's part of the shock value that Jared was talking about. There is definitely a lot to get you to sit up and pay attention, and
Yeah.
then I think he unfolds the message.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
He says you recall from the page, and I'm like, yeah, I am, but not what you just said. It was what you said 4 sentences ago.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't enjoying the story until I was. Like it was towards
Right.
the end. It's very similar to some of the themes, and not necessarily Clara and the Sun, I don't think, but this idea that you don't really need a person to be physically present, or that you don't even need that person, you just need a copy of them, which I think one of you said is so bloody relevant today,
Yeah.
because Mark Zuckerberg apparently wants to reduce your friend gap by giving you artificial friends. So
Yeah. But
it's
yeah, the story was it was kind of brilliant because he says, "Do you recognize that it's progress is an ascending, accelerating, exponential curve? It takes hell's own time
Yes.
to get started, but when it goes like a bomb." And that's exactly how the story works.
mm,
You know?
yeah.
Isn't it so true though? Like the story starts off about transgender, right? A boy who's or a girl who's not a girl but is born a boy but is a girl, in all other matter of fact, and that we sort of use predetermined kind of traits before birth to determine who a person's going to be. Like a lot of big sci-fi ideas, but this idea that if you took somebody from 1960 and dropped them into today's society, they would be completely lost. They wouldn't know what the hell was going on. They wouldn't be able to make sense of the thing, and like that's only a gap of 60 years or so, and it's so true. Like if we took us from out of today and dropped us in 40 years in the future, you wouldn't know what was going on. The value system, the way the world works, everything is completely changed in a short space of time. And I thought, like 4 pages, he took. It was brilliant.
Yeah. And he says, "And you scotch drinking steak eater in your relaxatizer chair." I'm like, "Hey, I resemble that remark."
Yeah.
Oh man.
But it was even the line, like in the majority, he says, like, I'm going to be, I know what you're thinking, this is just a story about a bunch of queers, right? And it's like, what? Sorry, in story, this is Frederick Pohl, well, what's he doing? And then it goes on to basically say, like, what is the difference between modifying yourself with a hearing aid to fix a disability, like that, than saying, I've got lots of feminine traits, so therefore I'm going to be a female. Like, do you tell me what is the difference there? Because he couldn't see one, even in 1960, whatever it was.
Yeah, 66, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite ahead of his time as far as that goes, because he man, he just let us have it in the first few paragraphs there. Like, I was like, "What is wrong with this guy?" And and then all of a sudden, though, but he back explains it, and
It does.
it's all like, wow, it's actually a very progressive story.
Yeah.
Not really much of a story, though, just kind of statements.
Yeah, it's this line again. I was just reading it, going like 1960 something. So, he doesn't need the flesh for pleasure. Genital organs feel nothing. Neither do hands, nor breasts, nor lips. They are only receptors accepting and transmitting impulses. It is the brain that feels. That is the interpretation of those impulses that makes agony or orgasm. Sorry. And it's this idea that these two people meet, they're attracted to each other, and they just take away the memory with them, and then they can be with that person for the rest of their lives if they need to, without the physical person there in front of them. And it's like, bloody hell. It's dark in some ways and invasive in others, but also it is true, like, and so at some level.
Yeah, you can't help but agree with it, but you also have to cringe at
Yes,
what is
you're
being
repulsed by
suggested.
the idea that
Yeah,
in it. But to
yeah,
me, that's good sci-fi. You know, where you
yeah.
present an idea and you kind of get somebody to feel something or experience something, and then come away from it and have them thinking about it. And I was excited to read this Frederick Pohl story because I do like Gateway quite a bit.
Mm,
Yeah,
It's one of those ones that stay with me, and I thought, right, this will be interesting.
yeah, yeah. This was a good story. Yeah.
Hmm.
Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
Sad to leave Klara behind.
Very
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave her in that yard.
Yeah.
Let's bring her
Only her
home.
head moves at this stage. Oh, it's terrible.
I want to adopt her.
Sad.
At least
Okay.
somebody does, Carl, and that's the important thing.
True. She
Is
had some
Rick
good years.
is Rick the real villain for not taking up the mantle? Is that what the story is about?
Damn you, Rick!
All you gotta do is go back to page 1.
Oh, there we
But-
go.
But
So
we
true.
know how it goes. We know where she'll end up. Will it ever be the same again? Will it? Will it, Jared?
Do you know,
No, it
if
will not. You are a new person, new experiences.
I could see picking this book up early one morning and doing a reread in a day. Like to me, it's
Yeah.
that kind of book where if you've got a comfort level with it and you know what's going to happen, you could kind of burn through it and kind of experience the world again. And it's also probably the first book that we have read in the podcast that I would pick up and give to anybody I know to read. I think
Yeah.
there's something for everybody in Klara and the Sun, regardless of whether it's not heavily science fiction, but it has enough recognizable things that even somebody that doesn't read science fiction will go, I understand what's going on there completely. Like and the themes are deep and rich enough. I might give it to my mum and really test the waters on that one.
Yeah. Just like Dead House Gates.
Just like, Children of
You gave
Time.
your mom Dead
So
House.
like this, Children of Time's next.
Okay. You gave your mom Dead House Gates?
No.
Okay.
I'm being facetious, of course.
For weightlifting? Or
Yeah.
For weightlifting. Yeah.
Oh, that's an idea. I'm always trying to get my mom to lift more than the 3 pounds she works with at the moment. All right. We'll be starting Ream D next week. You may or may not see it next week, depending on when I post it. Hopefully, I will keep up with the schedule.
I'm sorry, for those listening, Happy New Year!
Oh, man.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.